Okay, in today's video, what I'm going to be explaining is three things: how to apply a patch, how to push a patch into GitHub, and also another version on how to apply a patch, but specifically a patch from GitHub. Okay, these three things are the main things that we are going to be taking in consideration, especially for the people that both want to be in the testing team trying to test others' patches, and for the people that are willing to contribute with code. So for the first part, as we were explaining in the previous video, the first thing is to prepare our WordPress-Develop repository in our system. If you want to know the exact steps to do this, go to the previous video and check it, because it's explained step by step. But in this part, I'm going to be explaining the same thing, but with a little twist, because when we want to send a patch, we cannot send it directly to the WordPress-Develop the repository, the official one. We have to send this to our personal repository, to a copy, that is called a fork. Okay, so the first part here is on how to fork the WordPress-Develop repository, and on how to start configuring our GitHub account so we can send those patches. And for retrieving patches, for applying patches for our system, it's not necessary to do all these steps, because the patch can be downloaded at any time. But for sending patches, we have to do them. Okay, so first of all, we are going to start configuring the system. Here I am in the WordPress-Develop repository in GitHub, and the first thing I have said, we have to go to the fork section that is here in the top, and when we click on this, it will appear this screen where it lets us create a fork. The thing here is that I already have a fork, because I've been working on this repository for a while. So basically, when we create the fork, what it will do is create something like this, but with our username. Okay, this is our fork. In this case, I also want to remark that here there is this button that says sync fork, because we are never going to be pushing changes into the main branch for Git. The thing here also very important, you have to have some little knowledge about Git that I'm not going to be explaining today, because all of the commands and things that we use with GitHub are based on Git. Okay, so in this case, for example, when I talk about branches, this is a very typical, very basic topic that anyone that has basic knowledge on Git should know, and I'm not going to be explaining. Okay, so in this case, the main branch for GitHub, so for this repository in WordPress-Develop is trunk. Generally, the main one is the one called main or master. The master was the old version. Current version is main. But for WordPress-Develop, since they come from another versioning system called SVN, they used to use the naming in that system that was for the main branch. It was called trunk, so they also use this for Git. Okay, so we never have to push changes when we do a patch. We never should push changes into trunk, because the trunk is the main branch where we should be getting changes for the latest changes for our development. Okay, so in this case, when the first day we get the repository, the WordPress-Develop repository, but in our branch, it will get a snapshot of the WordPress-Develop official one, and it will copy it into our fork. But in the future, it will not sync automatically. So we have to come here and press this button, sync fork, and then press here update branch, and it will bring all the latest changes from WordPress-Develop. Okay, so this is the first important part that we should take into consideration, because in the future, if we don't have the trunk branch updated, we will be missing a lot of updates that could interfere in the code we are modifying if we want to send a new patch. Okay, so generally what I do is every day I want to start working on WordPress, I come here to my branch, I click here and I update as I've done now. Okay, this is an important thing to know. So now that we have everything ready, the next step is to clone the repository as we did in the previous video. The difference here is that we are going to be cloning the repository, but not from HTTPS as we did before, but from SSH. Okay, so when we click here on code, the other day we used this URL because the SSH needs a key that we have to generate, an SSH key. I'm going to be explaining very briefly how to generate this. If we go to this URL here, I will be copying it into the description. It explains how to generate a new key. It's very simple. We go to our terminal, okay, and then we copy this line and we change it with our GitHub email, for example, in my case, no. So once we have created this, launched this command, it will ask to save a file. That this file is going to be the private file we are going to be using to add it to our GitHub account. Okay, so we can leave this, just press enter, and then it will, in this case, this already exists because I have mine, and then it will prompt for a password. Once we have done this process, what we have to do is it will generate it will put all the instructions here to show how it shows with another name. Okay, in this case, for example, like this. Okay, for example, now it prompts for a password. We can leave it empty if we want, and then we have here all the instructions. Here we have to take this one. This one is the public key. Okay, so we get this this path, and we are going to show this. Okay, we have to take, this is the public key we have to use for GitHub. So we copy it, and then we go into GitHub and we go into new SSK. Here we leave authentication key. Here we put a name, for example, our key, and then we copy this this list of characters. Okay, this is very important because once we add the key, I'm not going to add it because I have another key right now, but once we press here, we are going to be adding our key, our SSH key, to our system, to our GitHub system, and from this moment we will be able to do pushes to our fork. Okay, this is very important, and also we will be able to clone our fork into our system. Okay, so let's say that I go here and now we have the key updated. Now we can go here and we can copy this URL. Okay, in the other session I clone the HTTP version. I can do two things now. I can remove this this repository, okay, this copy of the repository, or what also I can do is change what it's called the remote. This is another element important in Git. No, it's obviously it's simpler to change the remote because I don't have to re-download the thing, but I'm going to re-download it only to show how you will see it in your system for the first time. Okay, so I'm going to remove this this repository. It can take a little to remove it, and then I'm going to clone it as if this was the first time. Okay, so here is git clone with the newer URL that is the ESSH1 we updated before, and now it will maybe it will prompt for the password that we put before, and now it will download the whole WordPress repository. Okay, in this case, as I said the other day, you can also use the parameter that only gets just the last commit, no, with the def command I told in the previous video. But for this example, I'm going to download the whole version because it's fast, no? My connection is pretty fast, and today GitHub is responding also very fast. So now that I have downloaded the whole GitHub repository, but this time with the SSH version, now we can go on it. Here in tray, it has updated with the new version, with the SSH version. I can check here with git remote show origin, I think. Check. Yeah, here I can see all the patches, all the branches, sorry. And here, as we can see, is the SSH repository, okay? But this is the fork, not as we can see here, it's my username here, and is the fork, okay? So this is very important because when we are going to be sending a new peer, a new patch. In GitHub, the patches are called peer. They stand for pull requests. When we send one of them, they are going to be sent to our fork, not to the official repository. Okay, so this is the first part. Now we are going to go into the second part of the video, where I'm going to be explaining first how to pick a patch from track. Okay, so here there are two methods. The first method is to get a diff patch. No, for example, generally all the diff patch are here in this box for every ticket. You can see many of these. The people what typically do is to copy the URL and download the patch. But there is a tool that was developed by Aaron Jorving that is very useful because it retrieves all the patches from a specific ticket, and it's very simple to use. We go into the repository here in the terminal, and then we can go and write this command: npm run patch, and now the ID of the ticket, in this case 15448. Okay, so okay, in this case, first obviously I have to run all the commands that I thought that I have done this before, but since we have cloned it again, I have to run all the commands again. So npm install first, then we have to do npm build deb, npm run build deb, and then npm run start. But for this part, only with npm install is enough, because we are going to be running Grunt that only needs the installation of the package. Okay, so it's not needed to run the other part, the other commands. Okay, this like the other day takes a little bit, like maybe 1 minute or a little more, and once all the npm packages have been installed, we can proceed with the patching, as we have done some seconds ago, okay, with the Grunt tool. Okay, so now I can go here and run this, okay, and now it's running the Grunt command, that is a software that is introduced inside our development dependencies. So now we can select which patch I want to apply. As you can see, you can compare. Here are all the patches that are the same as here. So now we can, and generally this tool automatically selects the last patch, in this case one sent 6 years ago. that is here, the one here in the bottom. As we can see, this is the same name. So we select the patch, we press enter, and now as we can see, this is something very typical. We can see that the patch has not applied successfully because there are a lot of hangs that are failing. This is because this has changed a lot from the last time it was introduced, so it's not applying well. And this is very typical, especially with the patches that are not very used in nowadays, okay? Because nowadays, as I said in the beginning of the video, the main method to apply patches is by using GitHub, okay? So this is very typical. But sometimes some people send patches and it's useful to know how to apply them. And this is the best method, as I have explained. So if the patch applies successfully, you will see that instead of failed, you will see it like this, no? Hang 1, succeed, etc. Only this, okay? But in this case, now I have explained how to apply a patch with grant only for the diff patch. Also, we can use this tool to apply GitHub patches, okay? This is interesting because with the same tool we can apply both patches, okay? But it's a little different, or at least I have not found another method to do it simpler. But it's not too much complicated. We only have to go here. As we can see, some tickets also have GitHub patch that are here, no? They are called, as I said, pull requests. In GitHub, the name is pull request for patches, okay? So here there are 2 pull requests. One, as we can see, is closed, and the other is correct, okay? Also, to know which is the latest one, we can guide through the ID, okay? Here in the attachments, it's a little bit more difficult because the people use the notation they want. So sometimes the only way to find which is the latest is by checking the latest, the date, no? But in here, we can follow the ID of the pull request. But sometimes we have to be careful because sometimes an older ID is the correct patch, okay? Because sometimes for some reason there is a good patch and another person send another patch, and I don't know why, but mainly this is because the people is not reading the whole report and they are ignoring that someone else has already sent a good patch, okay? So we have to be careful on the selection of the patch we are going to be testing or we are going to be using for whatever, okay? So in this case, it's pretty easy to detect which is the correct path from the 2 because one is closed. So obviously this is the correct one. And also this is the latest one because the number is bigger than the other one, okay? So now we know that this is the patch we're going to be taking. So now we click here in the view peer and we only have to copy the URL and do this exact same procedure, okay? So we do the npm run grant patch, but instead of one second, this is important, we have to check that the previous patch has not changed any files because in this case, as we can see, this line changed something because it succeeded. So now we have to restore all the changes before applying the new patch, okay? So I'm going to restore, and now we can go with the same, as I said, npm run grant patch, but instead of putting the ID of the ticket, we are going to put the whole URL of the pull request, okay? In this case, the whole with the 9500, okay? So we go for it, and very simple, as we can see here, done. The patch has applied correctly without any errors. So now this patch is ready to be tested, but as simple as this. We can go here into the ID interface, and we can check here in the source control if there are new changes, okay? In this case, as we can see, there are 2 new changes that both come from the patch we have already applied, okay? So this is simple, no? As we can see. Now, for the second part, well, for the last part of the video, I want to explain how to send a patch. Imagine that this ticket, for example, doesn't have anyone working on it. It used to have someone like 1 year ago. This person sent a patch, and this is the patch we have applied. We check the patch, and we find that we have to do one change. Let's see, for example, here in this file, I'm going to do an example. This is not correct, obviously. Okay, this is important to know. So let's say that here we go and we modify the code, okay, and we think that this is the correct version of the patch instead of the previous one. So now we are going to be sending to the GitHub, to the fork, we are going to be sending our corrected version, okay? So now we have the files that are going to be sent, that are these two, okay? And as we check in Git status, we can see that these are the two that are going to be sent, okay? And now, first of all, remember we are in trunk, that is the main branch for the repository of WordPress Develop. So before we have to switch into another branch, okay? As I said, never modify your fork trunk branch. Always work in a different branch. This is super important. Which name we can use for the patch? We can use whatever name for the branch. Sorry, we can use whatever name we like to use. Personally, I like to use the name, the number, the ID of the ticket I'm focusing. For example, in this case, the ticket was, remember, 15448. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to create another branch that is called, in this case, Git checkout. Okay, B to create a branch. And now generally I use like this notation when it's a patch. You can use whatever name you like. There is no convention. Everyone use a different name. Some people likes to use, for example, a little description of the patch. For example, in this case, this is a thing related to mail. So we can say, for example, mail multipart. Okay, I'm going to use this for the example, this name. We don't have to use the patch also. This part is also I've invented also. So we can use like this only, okay? If we want. I'm going to use this for simplifying the process, okay? So Git checkout B for branch and the name of the new branch, okay? So now we are in the new branch, and now as we can see here, we are in the new branch, and now we can commit our changes, okay? So we can go here and put a name for the commit. This is an example. This is an example for the video, okay? Commit, here in this ID, it says that there are two unsaved files you want to save, yeah, and I commit, okay? Okay, now here there is an error. 1 second. Okay, so now once we have put the commit message and we press the commit, it will commit. In my case, it was throwing an error, because I also have sign-in key for publishing my commits, but for our example, we are not going to be using this type of keys, so you are not going to have any problems, and it will automatically commit directly without the error. Okay, so once we have committed, we can see here the commit. This is an example for the video with all the changes we added in the patch. And finally, we can click here in publish branch, and it will automatically it will prompt for the password we used for SSH, and then once we put the password, it will automatically send the branch to GitHub. Okay, so now we have to go back into GitHub. Okay, so we go here in GitHub, and we go into the Wordpress-Develop repository again, and we are going to see this message that is informing that we have sent a new branch to as a new pull request. Okay, so to officially push this request into the WordPress repository, we have to click here in compare and pull request, and now we have to add all the information explaining what we have done. Okay, all patch, all the explaining everything, maybe also including some testing instructions, etc. Okay, here in the message. And also we have to add a title. This title is informative, explaining, well, what patch we have done. Okay, generally what I do is I go into the track as I was using here, core track. Okay, and I'm going to go to the same ticket I was using before. Okay, let me see here. I think it was this one. Yes. So generally what I do is I take the title of the ticket and I use it for here also, because it's to keep them the same, but it's not necessary. You can put here the title you want or something descriptive you think that match. Some people like to put also here the component. For example, in this case, the component it's mail. Some people like to put something like this in the title. It's up to you. There are no specific rules. And in fact, here, before I remove it, here it explains which kind of things you have to take into consideration before sending a new patch and adding all the information here that is important. Okay, so once we have added here all the information, the last step is linking this ticket with this pull request with the ticket, that is this one in this case. So what we have to do is to copy the URL, and here we can put it wherever you want, but I like to put in the place they say, no, here that says track ticket. So we remove this and then we put the URL. And now when we click this button, create pull request, it will automatically create the new pull request. It will appear here in the list of pull requests. And finally, anyone can come here and see your code. Also, it will appear automatically here in the pull request list after the last one. In this case, if I click the button, in the previous step, it will appear here, okay, with the new ID and everything. So this is the process to create a new patch. You can also create a patch by doing a diff, okay, like all this. But this is, I believe, an old method that was very useful in the past when you couldn't send pull requests, because as I said before, they were using the SVN that doesn't support pull requests. But now with using GitHub is the best method, and also I recommend it a lot for another reason. And this reason is that when you send a pull request, it automatically runs a testing suite that checks for a lot of things, like for example, if all the unit tests are passing, if all the coding standard tests are passing, and a lot of environment variables that also will be being checked during this process. Okay, so this is very important, because once you have sent your pull request and wait, for example, 1 hour approximately, it will check everything, and then you can come here and see if it passed or if there are some errors. In this case, for example, as you can see, there are, in this specific pull request, there are a lot of errors that this person has to fix before continuing with this patch. So it's very interesting and very useful also to send here the pull request. Here you can see all the ones with the green tick, they are passing all the tests, and the one with the red cross are not passing certain tests. In this case also you can see this here, all the checks pass. It means that it's passing all the tests in GitHub. So this is pretty much everything you have to know to, one, create a patch, apply a patch that is already in the ticket, both the diff ones and the GitHub ones, and second, on how to send a new patch. So I'm going to be closing this video now, and for the next video I'm planning to explaining how to work with the micro tracker. That is another tool that we are using for our sessions. It's very useful for tracking all the tickets we are working on. So thank you for listening, and if you have any doubts or anything, you can throw them on the comments, or you can write on Slack in the core test or core channels, or you can send me a private message, whatever you prefer, and I will try to help you on the process.